Okay, we're gonna get started. Hello everyone, this is Allison Davis and I'm here with my beautiful mom, Marla. And I'm really excited to have her with us here today because we just finished in our refined Bible study. We just finished talking about 1 Peter 3, 1 and 2, which talks about, and a little bit more into that chapter, talks about being a godly wife. And in our last Bible study with the live broadcast, we talked specifically about being a wise wife. Really a wise woman. In other areas it could go into too, but being a wise wife specifically with our words, and talked a lot about that. And so I thought, you know what, I know many of you have talked to different women throughout the years and heard from some of you with some questions about this. And so I thought, who better to talk to this about than my mom? And just a little bit about my mom, she has been in women's ministry for several years. She did lead a Bible study called BSF for 12 years. She also has started and been in women's ministry through her church, through 3 different churches, and in current one now. It's very involved. And then also on top of that, of course, has the best experience, which has been her own marriage. How many years have you been married to? 42 years. So I think she knows a little bit what she's talking about. So we're gonna get into a few questions that she's gonna answer for us. So before we do that, Mom, Marla, what would you like? Anything you would like to say?
Well, I just am excited to be here and get to visit with my wonderful daughter. I had such a great time raising 4 daughters, and so I think God just planted women's ministry in my life by having all girls and having lots of their friends, and just so many women throughout my life be a part of my life, older and younger. So I'm glad to share today.
Awesome, yes, and you do have a lot of your own personal experience
Yes.
and stories and ones that we laugh a lot about now
Yes.
with you and my dad. His name is Rick.
Yes.
So, okay, so let's get right into it. So I'm going to read the first question, and this came from one of our Bible study girls, and she said, my husband didn't always go to church with me, and the best advice I got was exactly what you shared on your video today, to stop nagging and start praying and showing your spouse God's love through your actions. This eventually led my husband to start coming to church with me. So, isn't that awesome? Thank you, Jesus. So her question is, would love to hear your advice. Would love to hear any advice you have about what I should be praying for specifically for my spouse.
Okay, well, I wrote down a few things so I wouldn't forget them, but I did really agree with Allison saying, telling you about the book, The Power of a Praying Wife. I give that to every newlywed in our church, and I give it to every girl that's having marriage issues. I always suggest that book because it's all praying. Every chapter is on prayer, and it starts with praying yourself. Like, don't try to change your husband, change you, and that's the only thing that we can change. So I always say pray for yourself to be the godly wife that your husband needs, and so it starts with you. So I do agree with that so much. But a few other things that you might want to pray specifically about was, the first thing is just that your husband would become more and more like Christ. Not what you think he should be, but what God wants him to be, because sometimes our picture and God's picture are different. So you need to surrender what you want to God. And as you surrender, you have to wait for God, and that means a lot of waiting. So I've been married a long time, and there are some things that I've waited a long time for, but I see God continuing to work not only in Rick but in me. And so just pray that you would get out of the way and let God get to your husband, because when we get in the way, it's harder. And just pray again that you would be the godly wife and helper, and then be thankful for your husband. As you pray, don't forget to be thankful.
Oh, yeah. So to focus on those good attributes.
Yes, there's always good things to be thankful for. That helps.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. All right. That was good. So, all right. Question number 2. What do you suggest when your husband is a Christian, but he isn't leading spiritually?
Okay, I told Allison that that's probably the number one complaint I get from Christian wives, especially the younger ones, that they always tell me, oh, my husband just doesn't lead me spiritually, and they just complain about that. And I actually would say that was my biggest complaint when I was a young wife. I just always thought Rick wasn't leading me spiritually, and I would even cry about it, and I just never was what I thought it should be. And I had a picture of what that was from my dad. My dad was a very godly man, and my husband is too, but their personalities were totally different. My dad was very orderly, disciplined, always, read the Bible to us, always prayed regularly, consistently, and that's to me what spiritual leadership was. Dad was definitely the head of the house. So when I got married, I just assumed that every man does that. And that's just not Rick's personality. So what I learned from God about that was to not make that spiritual leadership look a certain way, and learn to wait on that and let God change Rick. And so over the years, I've become so much more content in that role, the roles that we had as in our house, and what that looked like, even raising, you girls, what spiritual leading looked like. So I would just, really encourage you to be patient and wait, and you yourself grow in Christ yourself, because there's no excuse for us not growing just because our husband may not be leading us the way we want. God is enough, and he will help you grow. And it actually, I think, helped me to grow more personally in my walk when my husband wasn't what I thought he should be, because then I really went to Jesus and I really learned to depend on him. And that helped me in the long run, to develop, I think, a closer walk with Jesus. So it works. God will work it out. But waiting is a good thing.
Yeah. And a hard thing.
And the hard thing, yes, a very hard thing.
Yeah, and I was telling my mom that growing up in our home, and now as an adult, like seeing the relationships, I see that my mom as the woman is a natural leader. My dad leads. He leads music. He leads certain things. I mean, he's great. But as far as certain everyday disciplines kind of things in certain other areas, my mom is more the leader, and so that was really good, because sometimes then when you're the leader, you expect also what you would do, what you would do as the leader. And so why isn't he doing this? Because it's very easy for me to think as a leader. Yes. So just that waiting and praying and just saying, I'm going to let Jesus lead me.
And then the other thing with that is, when you are more of a natural leader or have those ideas in your mind, is to check your attitude. Am I even letting him lead? Because sometimes when you do have a lot of that vision or whatever you want to lead, then sometimes you're stopping your husband from leading, because you're just taking over. Yeah. And I felt I did that too much, and sometimes I just needed to back away and allow Rick, and that can sometimes feel like disrespect to your husband, like you're being too pushy or too dominant, and they need to feel respected. And so it's kind of a lot of discernment in that area, how much to do and how much to let your husband. So sometimes you have to not lead the way you want to, but allow your husband to have a little more freedom in leading, and then God will give you ways to lead your children. And when you're raising your kids, it's I got to have a special role in raising my daughters in the Lord too. So
because I can remember my mom leading the family devotionals, but then like at holidays, even now, like more special events, then my dad does lead those things. So you guys have kind of come into like when you're gonna lead in different ways.
Right.
So
that's grown. I mean, it's been 42 years, so that's changed over the years. And so just be patient with your man, because they do come around.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's really good stuff. Do you guys think so? That's good. All right. Third question. What if I want to move forward in my relationship with Jesus? I want to go to church, but my husband's just not into it. And I'm nervous to talk to him about it, and because I'm not sure what he'll think. And kind of what I'm thinking on this too is that she doesn't want to be on a different page. Like a wife doesn't want to be on a different page than her husband or experience. She's nervous to experience the deepness and the closeness with God, and her husband like not be unified with her in that, and then she's scared it'll pull them apart. So what do you think on that?
I know that's a tough one, and definitely isn't the ideal to be pulled apart spiritually. But I also don't want to encourage girls to not go to church and not grow spiritually in a Bible study or go to those kind of things because their husband won't, because then they're also not growing. And in the end, we're accountable to God.
Right.
each one of us. And so if we really want to put God first, and we really want to know God and know Jesus and be Spirit-filled and grow, then He has to be number one. And sometimes that means, even if it's a little separation during that time of our marriage, you may need to show that, but you can do it with kindness. You need to not push it in his face. You need to include him and invite him and show the fruit of it. Like when you're spiritually growing, you need to show it. And I remember one time that just reminds me of a time when I was always in Bible study fellowship, and it wasn't a very good time in our marriage. And I remember Rick even saying to me that I can't even tell you go to Bible study. That Bible study doesn't help you at all with him, with our relationship. And I was so hurt by that, and it really made me examine myself, because obviously I wasn't having fruit. So, continue to grow, but allow it to show to him, so you can still be involved in church and still be loving and kind at home, and hopefully that will win him over. But you can't just shove it down his throat. Yeah, it doesn't work.
Just like we talked about in First Peter, like you will win him over by your conduct and the purity of your life.
Yeah, so it's a tough stage, but miracles happen. I know a lot of girls that have gone a lot of years to church without their husbands, and miracles will happen. And and God sustains them during that time and grows them and gives them a faith that grows, and they're able to be a better mom and a better wife and have that fellowship and growth, and they can remain happy and peaceful because they are developing as a Christian woman. So it's still so important.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's good. Okay. A couple more questions here. So I keep asking my husband to do things around the house, things with the family, just things to help out, but I feel like I'm nagging him. What would you do?
Yeah. I laughed at this one because Rick and I always have a kind of a conflict in this area, because my love language is tasks and his is quality time. And so I always want to get work done, and he always wants to relax. So we have a big difference in that area. And so I didn't start out too good in that area in our marriage, and I still don't always do the right thing, because I think I definitely nagged too much and expected a lot from him. And again, because that's how my dad was, and that was my picture of how a husband related to his wife. So I just assumed that he would help me whenever I asked.
Right.
And I would ask him to do something for me, and he would say no. And I'd be like, no, I didn't think you could say no, So I just had to learn that, Rick is his own self. He has so many great attributes, and that wasn't as important, And I just have learned over the years what works, and he's helping me a little bit more as we get older, and I'm expecting less in a good way. And it's just, I don't want to major in the minor issues. I just don't want it to affect our overall marriage. So I've just had to learn that nagging doesn't help, and hopefully you can have good, kind conversations about it and ask him to do things, but not to the point where you're getting mad.
Right.
Anger just doesn't work.
So. Right. Okay.
Good. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I just liked how, you said did not major in the minors, because to somebody else, another marriage, might be, it's not the doing things around the house, it's something else that's just like, it just bugs us. And just talking about, like, from the Bible, our live Bible study, how I talked about, you do things sometimes just for the peace of the home.
Yeah.
Because they don't really, they bug us, but they don't really matter.
Right.
And so,
yeah, that's a good way
that's
to say
something
it.
that I have learned from you. All right, last question. I think this is a good one. Last question is just, what's your advice for newlyweds to start their marriage off strong? And I think, I kind of talked this over with my mom, I think this is good for any of us in any season of our marriage. So, but specifically, for someone who's new and starting out their marriage.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of girls ask those things, and when they're first married, they're open and they just want to know, how to have a good marriage. So some of these are just general that everybody knows, but of course the first one I put down is keep God first, and I know that everybody says that, but if it's the only way to build a strong foundation, because faith is the glue that holds you together, and it doesn't allow divorce to be an option. So if you don't lay that foundation, it's just too easy to want to quit. You just, you're done if it doesn't work out. So you have to have a reason to stay together more than I like you and you like me and let's be married. And if we would say that our marriage is built on God and we're not going to divorce, then you stick it out. And I remember Rick used to say, I don't know why you love me, and I'd always say, God made me. Like he'd kind of feel bad. I'm like, well, I'm not going to, that's why. There's sometimes we don't like each other, but we love each other because God gave us to each other and we made those vows. And I think it's just important to stay humble and submissive and unselfish, to put each other first. And for a girl, Rick always tells me this, and I'm working on this still, is that he wants me to be his girlfriend. He always says, all the other things that you do are good, but I need a girlfriend. I don't want a mom. I already had a mom. Don't be my mom. And just desire to meet those needs of a girlfriend. And that means just, adoring him, respecting him, making him feel good, being fun with him. So don't lose that. Keep that. And for newlyweds, that's a little bit easier. But as you get older, you lose that.
Kids start to happen in life, and you get busy and you have more responsibilities. And that reminds me too, and we'll get back to the rest of yours, but I remember one Valentine's Day, this was just a few years ago, I saw that I was on a website and it said, click here for Valentine gifts for your wife, click here for Valentine gifts for your girlfriend. So they actually separated out, and I went on the wife one, and it was like robes and some jewelry and like mom kind of stuff, stuff for your kids. And then the girlfriend one, it was lingerie and it was beautiful jewelry, and it was flowers, and it was diamonds and all these really purses and these really cute things. Anyway, that's not really about the gifts, but it just made me think of that, because we do. And I've heard my dad say too, like, I don't need a mom, I could hire a maid. Like, what are the things that are important to him, and just to keep, I always remember him saying that, like, we want to be their girlfriend. Right. Still, to keep those sparks going. Keep date nights, keep fanning that flame. And then I really have had to work on this too, just by using kind words. This came to me just even the last 10 years, I can't remember exactly what triggered it, but just being so convicted that I could use kind words and self-controlled words at work or at church, and with my neighbors, even if they were hurting me or saying mean things, or things weren't working well, or they were aggravating me, I could use self-control and kind words to them. Then I would come home and Rick would bug me or do something I didn't like, and I wouldn't use kind words. I would just treat him harshly. And I thought, wow, why do I speak more ungodly to Rick than I do people that I don't even care as much about? And so I've really tried to hear my voice and listen to how I'm talking to him, and remind myself that that isn't very godly, and then I want to make him feel special and treat him like I really love him, which I do. So that's one. And then never give up. And I've had to tell this to a lot of wives over the years, and not really newlyweds, but they need to set that foundation, because if you don't start that commitment in the beginning of your marriage that you're never going to give up, and you have the vows, better for worse, and sickness and health and all that, I mean, that sounds good on your wedding day, but you are going to go through sickness, and you are going to go for worse, and financial problems, and so the commitment has to be to stick it out no matter what. And after 42 years, Rick and I say that all the time, I'm so glad that we stuck it out. The reward is your older years, when you get to have your children get married and grandchildren, and you get to look back on your story of your journey together. And the example in the Bible of Christ and the church is us. And when we don't show that to the world, then they're not seeing a good picture of Christ. And so it's a great way to testify who God is. I mean, a lot of times, the longer you're married, you have more chances to share that with people. They'll be like, you've been married 42 years, it's a way to share what Jesus has done in our life. So I love having that together with Rick, and thinking about leaving that legacy to our daughters, and having that peace in my heart that we stuck it out and we kept our commitment. So I love that you have like a story that you can look back even now after 42 years. You can see like this, just the good and the bad and the beautiful and the hard times. It's your story. You have always had someone to go through that with you. So, thanks, Mom.
Yeah, love you.
Thanks. So if you guys have any comments, put them below. If you have anything that stood out to you, put that in the comments here on the video. If you have anything that you would love to encourage my mom with and thank her for speaking about, that would be great too. So thanks for joining us. Thank you.
You're welcome.